Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week on Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast. As always, presented by our wonderful friends over at Scent Lock, Scent Blocker, and Oz, the entire powerhouse of Nexus Outdoors. I myself am the I guess you would say camo snob, and everything has to match. So one of the biggest things I look for in a line of clothing is if it can get me from early season to late season. And the entire line of Scent Lock and the entire line of Scent Blocker can do that. So whether you're going out turkey hunting or elk hunting and you want to look more at the blocker line, or whether you're a diehard whitetail hunter like myself, the Scent Lock line is phenomenal. So one of the brands at Nexus will have you covered. So go check them out, guys, because they are phenomenal. I've got a special guest of mine, a big supporter of Bear Archery, a big supporter of the podcast, and this is his first time on the show, which I should have had you on long ago, so I apologize. But we've got Jonathan Karch from Three Rivers Archery. Jonathan, how are you, man?
I'm great. I'm happy to be on the show, and a longtime supporter. Love being part of it, and I'm definitely doing real good with hunting season on the cusp of starting in my area.
Yeah, should have had you on long ago because Three Rivers are great friends of Bear Archery and have been a supporter of the podcast since it started. So should have had you on long ago, but I'm excited to talk about what Three Rivers has going on, talk about some of the Bear traditional bows, and just have some fun, man. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always love talking archery, and I mean, bear archery is a staple to that. So absolutely.
Now, we kind of talked before starting to record, and we talked about, obviously bows are about to start rolling out, and from everybody, it's getting that time of year. This is the greatest time of year because we've got college football, bow season, and then new gear starts rolling out. So it's an exciting time. And we started talking about, what can you even improve on? I mean, Bear Archery has a gold mine in the mag riser. So where do they even go? And that's kind of what we talked about. So I'm anxious to hear kind of your thoughts on the mag riser, because I don't think I've actually got to talk to you about that bow yet.
No, yeah, we haven't yet. So anything that's on the takedown system is just it's amazing. I mean, there's a bow that really shines of just well thought out. I mean, that that simple takedown system has not changed since it was introduced, and there's not a thing you can do different to it that make it better, because it's amazing as is, and there's so much demand for it because anybody and everybody goes, "Oh, do you have any bare limbs?" Or, "Oh, just need a bare riser. I've got, old this, that, and the other. It'd be perfect to get using again." But yeah, it was super exciting to see him bring the mag riser back out. Um, I mean, having an option like that back out, and especially with the camo pattern option, I think was really cool. And just seeing a little bit of history coming back without not really having to change too much to it.
No, that's what's, hearing guys in the traditional community, you hear them talking like, dude, I've had these limbs for, however many years, and my granddad had these limbs, and now I get to shoot them again because they work on the same riser. And that's what was so cool about that bow launch is, you've got an old set of limbs, buy a riser, and you can throw them on and use it. And I think that's just, it's really cool that it's also really impressive that they come out with such innovation and such a phenomenal shooting bow, but they maintain the heritage of it.
Right. And I think that really stands tall to it, because I mean, we sell a lot of bows, a lot of metal riser bows that have tons of adjustment tuning, bells and whistles. Then you look at this, I mean, this old style riser, and it's like, "Oh, you want adjustable center shot? Here you go. This is how we used to do it, forever ago." And it's nice to see the old school way of modern innovation, I guess, to it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is it, easy enough.
And, and that goes back to Bears. it's not so much new anymore, but to their marketing slogan of the Fredbear Way. And that truly is the Fredbear Way of continuing to innovate, continuing to change, continuing to evolve, but maintaining who they are and maintaining what Fredbear established and what Fredbear started. And I've told the guys this. I've told Chris Parrish this. I've told Alec this. I believe that Fredbear would look at the company and look at what they're doing and truly be proud.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they're still, I mean, they're the flagship, especially in the traditional archery side of things. I mean, the flagship bow lines out there of, everybody has a desire for it. When I'm anywhere, talk with anybody about archery, you always have a fan in Bear Archery there. It's so near and dear to a traditional archer's heart of knowing that this is what fueled traditional archery for so many years and paved the way to be able to have what we have now. And yeah, Fred Bear would definitely be real happy with what what the company has and what they're offering and all the innovations and new stuff to it.
Now you mentioned it, and I actually haven't got to. I haven't A, I haven't messed with it yet, and B, I haven't really talked to a lot of people about it yet. But that adjustable strike plate, how is that used in the setup of a bow? Like, why would you change your strike plate? Why would you adjust that? And what benefits come from that?
Sure, yeah. So it's really helpful with tuning an arrow because now you're not just tuning the arrow to bow. You have a little bit of the bow tuning to the arrow, so you're able to move both crosshairs on it to really get that precision tune in there. So adjusting the center shot, whether in or out, can really, I don't want to say soften, but work with the spine. So I find a stiffer spine likes closer to center shot. So instead of trying to add more weight out front, trying to weaken a spine, you can just tweak that back to move your arrow to sit closer to center, and it'll like that heavier spine to it, the stiffer spine. Same thing in reverse. If you need to weaken it out, you don't need to be cutting on the arrow or adding more point weight to the front or any of that. You can just tweak the bow a little bit. Everything's staying the same and be able to see new results from it. And it's just the little things, you're not having to do as much tuning or tweaking on the bow as you would adding weight on the arrow to get results. So it's a really nice feature once you've got, you're all the way 90% plus dialed in. You are just that little bit more that gets it flying perfect.
So that would be, so if the strike plate was all the way in, that is that perfectly center shot?
I believe it's past center for that, but then you'd have to see how much of the rest is sticking out. I don't remember how thick that is there, but
I
I
got
think
you.
if you're going all the way in, is if you have a bigger shaft, say like 11/32 wood arrow, that would put it closer to center on the bow.
I got you. See, what's funny is, like I said, I'm new to traditional archery, and I love the learning process of it. I love bringing everything in. Dude, I think I've called Three Rivers probably more times than they want me to, and just asking them questions, which is why I absolutely love your company, because you're a wealth of knowledge, and I call those guys all the time, and they're probably like, "It's Dylan again," and he's got another question. But I'm shooting a micro diameter arrow out of my recurve setup right now, and that strike plate's all the way in, and I'm getting perfect arrow flight. So does that mean it's a very stiff arrow that you said if it wants?
Well, your bow can it can tolerate a stiffer arrow when you have it deeper on the center shot for it,
Gotcha.
especially centered on it, because it's not needing to flex around the riser as much. So you can have a stiffer arrow, which is nice for then being able to put more weight out front and still be able to have heavier weight with it.
Yeah, that kind of answers a lot of my questions actually, because in my mind I was thinking, well, I just had these questions because I was like, well, on my old bow, which I understand is a complete different bow, but I was like, I was running a 500 spine with no weight out front, and now I'm running a 400 spine with 260 grains out front, and I'm like, that just isn't adding up. Like, I should have had to cut this arrow to stiffen it some. But now you've answered kind of a lot of my questions now because I didn't have to stiffen the other arrow because of the strike plate.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And then having especially if you have where it's got, because the nice thing with that riser, it's a little bit of a cushion to it as well. Because there's one little tuning tip that a lot of people don't think about with it. If you go from like calf hair, it's incredibly slick, but it has no give to it. You go to a little bit of a leather cushion, or even Velcro that's got a lot more cushion to it. Your arrow will tune a little nicer because it's got that little bit of cushion to play with on it. Where like if you're on calf hair, yeah, it's an incredibly slick release, but it has zero forgiveness. It's hitting the hard shelf right away with it. So you got to have a little bit more precise. There's for like on the Kodiak and that's got the feather rest, man. It's got plenty of cushion so that it can, if you've got a bad release, not even a bad release in how we think of, where you slap your face while you're going away, but just, that little bit of, um, uneven pressure to your release, having that cushion to it can make a huge impact on saving the shot.
I got a question for you. You said bad release, and I've got one. No, I'm just kidding. I do, but I'm constantly working on it. This is why, and I've got so many questions lined up because every time I have the opportunity, and this is what I want to encourage the listener, whether you're just now starting in compound archery or whether you just now made the switch to a recurve or whether you just started hunting, period. Anytime you have the opportunity to talk to somebody with more knowledge than you, pull in as much of that as you can. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, I don't understand this and I need help. Because that's how we become better archers, better hunters, better outdoorsmen all around. So I'm still in that process of anybody I talk to in the traditional world, I'm like, hey, I got a question for you. Hey, I need to know this. Hey, what about this? And so I do have a question, and this just came up. I've never in my lifetime struggled with slapping my arm with a string. And I didn't even when I switched to a recurve. And I shot for about a year. And then 2 weeks ago, for about a 3-day time period, I was slapping the crap out of my arm. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And so I would try to, I would put more bend in my elbow. And I mean, I tried all of these different things and I was still getting string slap. And I was like, okay, something has changed. I thought maybe my clicker's messed up and I'm way over drawing, and I measured everything and nope, still right on the dot, 28.5-inch draw, measured brace height and all that stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea why I'm doing this. But I went through and I've got over it now. But for like a 4-day period, I was getting furious because I was slapping my arm so hard every time I shot. Any idea as to why?
Well, you said you checked your brace height because that's usually the first culprit.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay. What was it at?
7 5/8.
7 5/8. That's good. Well, and it's a takedown, right? That's the
Yeah,
mag.
that's the mag riser.
And I might even bump that up to 8 just to see how it feels. Because that's a big one for it. As you find out, as that stretches out a bit, it can do it. I mean, grip is huge to it. Just because it's it doesn't take much for it. I've consciously, because then it eventually just becomes unconscious to it, of like rolling the elbow out a bit. So not as much bending the elbow, but just kind of, so like, all right, it's pointed down when you first put your hand out when you go to shake somebody's hand. And, hand up like the stop sign, and just that little bit of rotation of it um, moves some of the meat of the hand out. But no, I'd raise the brace height. I wouldn't be afraid to go all the way up to 8 1/4 just to see how the bow responds to it.
Now, how will that throw off and affect your tune?
Well, if you get too crazy with it, um, I mean, there will be some to it of because it's not going to be on the string quite as long. I mean, we're talking 1/4 inch here to 1/2 inch tops, but um, that's the thing to check. That's why it's one of those, it's the prep work up to the season and not shooting of where you try the different things to see how it reacts to it. I've always gotten when I've raised my brace height, because that's how I know when I'm like, okay, it's, if it's not hitting my arm, but like my groups open up, I'm like, brace height, brace height. I gotta check it. And it's usually out of whack. The second I get that string twisted up, back to where it needs to be, my groups tighten right back up. And it's like, geez, it was as simple as that to get things back to a good flow.
So I've got another question for you.
Sure.
If you were to adjust the brace height, say you're running a clicker, these questions might not pertain to anybody else listening, but they do to me. If you're running a clicker
Mhm.
and you just unscrew the clicker from the limb, twist it up, get a new brace height, and screw it back in, will the clicker stay on the same draw length?
It should, unless you're twisting a lot, because it's talking about where contact points in the string. Um, so I mean, unless you're having to twist a whole inch out of your string, you should be okay. Because even to get a quarter of a twist out, you're only doing a handful of twists, or quarter of an inch
Right.
raise in your brace height. You're only doing 6 or so twists usually. I mean, it always depends, but um, not enough where I think you'd see it right away, but it would definitely be something to, and that's why for a lot of the clickers they do the balls on the one end so that you can fine tune the adjustment there.
I
Um,
got you.
but
Um,
yeah, it'd be a thing to watch for. But God, I couldn't think it being too critical yet, unless you were right on the hair's line of where it was set up to.
right. Um, Now let's kind of switch gears here. That way, um, the people who are like, I don't care, you fix your own problems on your own time.
I,
What
I, I tell you, every bit of it helps somebody, because it's one of those things we all hit it. A lot of the questions we get, um, that I don't want to say repetition, but a lot of the same issues we all have. So nobody
Yeah.
should think that they're out there going, "Oh man, I'm the only guy that's doing this. I'm a terrible shot. I can't do it." Because I mean, that's what I have a whole department, my tech guys. It's from when the phones turn on to they go off, of like I'd say 80% of it is just helping answering tech questions, whether it's phone calls, emails, or messages we get, letters, whatnot, of just helping people, you know, fine tune their setup, or what am I not thinking of? Because we all need to bounce ideas off of people to be like, yes, yes, this is the way to do it. And you were spot on of like, listen to other people, whether they have more experience or not, because you know, uh, there's more than one way to get to the right answer here, which is
Yeah.
part of what I love with traditional archery. You can really make it your own. I'll be
No,
like, yeah, that's
that was my biggest appeal to traditional archery. Once I really started diving in, at first it was the simplicity. It was pull back and shoot. But then when I started diving into it, I'm like, this is so much more complex than the bow is simpler, but everything else is more complex. Because with a
that
compound, you can tune any arrow to any bow pretty much. But
right.
with a recurve, it's a lot of time, effort. Like I probably spent 2 weeks just tuning my bow before I ever started really just shooting and enjoying shooting the bow, and it was fun. Like, it was frustrating at times because I'm like, well, why am I getting anyways? But you're digesting all of these things. Okay, I'm getting knock right and I'm getting high and I'm getting, so you play with brace height, you play with knock heights, and you play with stiffening your arrow, weakening your, I mean, it's so fun, man.
Yep.
It's so rewarding at the end of the day when you see that arrow fly perfectly and you're like, man,
And that's it exactly. It's the reward from it. It's traditional archery is a great sport slash hobby, because you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want for you, and it's whatever hits with you. I mean, you're right. When you start out, you're just throwing arrows, and you're happy to hit the target, and you can even shoot really good. I see a lot of people, the first time you put the bow in their hand, before they even the whole thought process to it all really sinks into it, and they're hitting the gold, and you're like, yeah, awesome, great. And you can do that, and you can love doing that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then you can get down to, man, I need to be 22% FOC. I've got to have
yeah.
sorry, a gap that's a point on at 30 yards, and anything and everything you want to fine tune it. But it's definitely part of the reward to it, of where you go, yes, I executed that shot great, and that arrow in flight was perfect, and you can't put into words how good it feels.
But then those guys that walk out there and shoot good make you mad.
I had a guy once. He used to creep. We were shooting a 3D shoot, and he never had the same anchor. He'd draw to the same, but he'd creep forward anywhere from 3 inches to like 7 inches. and he was shooting better than I was that day. I mean, I was just having a rough day, but I'm looking at this going, how the heck is he beating me? But
No, my
but
my brother, my brother took the dive into shooting a recurve the same time I did, but I had shot a compound for however many years, and he hadn't, and and man, I'm the kind of guy that like I'm anal about tune and about spine and all these things, and I practice every single day. And not too long ago, my brother comes over and I had a hog target out at 30 yards, and dude was just stacking them. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how is this? And I'm like, kudos for you, man. And we walked back inside, and my dad was like, how'd you shoot? And I'm like, he shot like crap. I shot really good. Obviously, my dad knew I was lying when I have to shout it out like that. But
yeah, it's and it's so nice to see that where it's like, wow, because we can, it's one thing where we run into it a lot with people where you put so much pressure on it to like, no, it's it should be this and it should be just fine. It's like you just got to remember it's supposed to be rewarding and fun.
yeah,
And when somebody can do that, absolutely amazing. Heck, we all love seeing new people in the sport and that, that spark as it just grows in them of when they're shooting good, they're enjoying it.
yeah.
And good. It's though having brothers of my own and that I definitely can relate to that. Like, no, I'm supposed to be beating you at this. Like that's how this goes.
Yeah. No, and that's why I love, again, going back to just kind of the appeal to it. It's like, shooting a compound is more complex. You have to walk people through release and peep sight and peep alignment with the housing and all of those things. And we could go into that for, however much goes into a recurve or a compound, but and then you can get somebody a recurve and just say, man, just enjoy shooting it. And they can shoot it really well. And you're like, wow, simply put, you're a natural. And it made me mad. I don't know if you know who, it didn't make me mad. It made me proud, but it made me jealous. I don't know if you know who Harv Ebers is, one of the founding members of Pope and Young. He was kind of the guy that led me through having a good shot process. And again, I had shot a compound for 10 plus years, and me and my brother traveled to Harv's house, and my brother gets out his bow and starts shooting, and Harv was like, oh my gosh, you're good. That's a perfect form. And I'm like, how? Like, mine sucks over here. I'm cranking everything and pulling everything, and you've just got this perfect form and perfect back tension and perfect release. But again, it's just that's part of the appeal to traditional archery is just you can pick it up and be good at it.
Right, right. And then you can invest and it'd be a whole different bear. And yeah, I love, to me that's part I love. It's because other than it's the challenge of getting the shot and get, especially in the hunting side of it, of getting close and making all that right, but then also what goes into the shot. I mean, uh, traditional archery, there's so many different ways to go about it, from the instinctive to point on, gap, string walking, all of that. It's like, wow, there's just, it's
Oh,
such a big pie that you can just find your spot on it that you like and really dive in.
I guess I wasn't done with my tech questions. I have one more for you. Thank you for mentioning string walking. Um, so with such a heavy arrow, I don't have to string walk, but I used to shoot a fixed crawl. Now my question is this: if you're going to shoot a fixed crawl on a bow, do you begin the entire process from the beginning trying to tune your arrow with a crawl, or do you find your tune, shooting 3 under, and then work your fingers down and retune as you go? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. And I would say you tune first for that standard shot. Before you, for me, I wouldn't, like, if we were starting to teach somebody on archery, I wouldn't be like, all right, we're going to set you up where you'd be, a string walking and fixed crawl and all that. You work on the basics first of, okay, get the arrow shooting great, just like this, without, jumping around on it, and then tune your way down. because you might find, depending how far of a fixed crawl you need to go. All right, well, we need to tweak the bow's tiller on that, to compensate, and then everything would be just fine. But you got to have it tuned right. You got to have the right setup before you go expanding out from there.
So if you walk down the string, is there any kind of guarantee? Like if you walk down the string, your knock point has to go up. If you walk down the string, your brace height is there anything like that?
I mean, because a lot of it's going to have to do with distance, and the arrow itself is going to have a lot in it. I can't think of anything off the top of my head where be like, all right, this is a staple. Write it down, and not in paper and pen. Of like, this is what you're going to have to do. If you go down half an inch on the string, you're going to have to um, raise your tiller, quarter inch or any of that. Yeah. You see, and I'm still the old fashioned instinctive guy myself. So
No, somebody asked me, and I didn't know how to explain it to them. Other than saying I'm an instinctive gap shooter is basically what how I explain it. I tell them I know my point on is 34 yards, but I never like range find and hold under
right,
accordingly. I just instinctively look at my point on and hold under. I hold under instinctively. But I'm still gap shooting. I just do it instinctively. And they were like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about, but let's move on. But no, so that's kind of what I do. But on my old setup, my point on was like 50 yards. So, I was holding 4 feet under the deer at 20, and I'm like, okay, I gotta walk. I can't do that.
right.
And so, but this is pretty well perfect. I
Right.
really like the point on of 34 yards.
Yeah, and the fixed crawl is great for that because yeah, I'm like, all right, I just need to have that second reference point of where okay, I do this, and yeah, you're bringing it to a much more manageable spot to be like, okay, this I can work with, and
Right.
uh, and yeah, that's which is why I think it's grown in such popularity because it is that blend of it all. Like, all right, well, I'm not counting strands, and I don't need to have a rangefinder on me to be able to shoot an arrow, but it gives you a level of reference where you go, okay, I know what I'm looking for, I know what it's at, but it's still in your control.
Right. So what kind of hunts you got planned coming up?
Oh, well, this year actually it's going to be a quiet year. I seem to do this. It's like every other year. So my family's moving. We're staying in the same area, but we're building a house. So I'll be moving on October 1st, which I know is terrible time to be doing it, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled. So I'll just be staying local here in Indiana. Do some deer hunting, hoping to get some of the girls out there with me. I've got 3 girls, so I'm hoping to get them out in the blind with me and just sit. Um, Outside of that, nothing this year. Last year, I was able to go to Alaska, and I fell into being a replacement guy on a hunt to go back to Alaska next year for black bear. So I'm very excited about that.
Nice.
Um, yeah, hope to go for moose in Colorado, get a cow tag next year. I've been putting in points, and I didn't draw this year, so next year, fingers crossed, I should be hopefully aiming to fill the freezer with moose, and that'll be my first moose ever. So I'm very, very excited to do that. Um,
That is
yeah,
exciting, man.
yeah, and then I'm talking with a good friend of mine about going pig hunting, and hopefully in February. And I'm like, yep, I need to break the year up. These past
In
2 years have
Texas?
been no, and I think it'll be Tennessee, but I'll have to check on where he actually had it. So one of those where it goes, man, I really want to do this, and you just you roll with it like, yeah, let's do it. What why are we talking about it?
I
Next
get
thing you
myself
know,
into a lot of predicaments that way. My
right?
wife's like, "Wait, why are you going hunting?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just going."
And that was the kicker on the pig one because a few years back I was in Texas and I got some eater sized pigs. I filled a cooler with 50 pounds, just so I could fly it back, and it was so delicious. My wife, she turns to me after having some brats and she goes, "You can go hunt pigs anytime you want if they taste this good." I go, "Sold."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
absolutely love pig hunting.
Oh man,
It's such a great way. It's such a great way to hone your skills. Whether you want to whether you want to get out and practice putting a stalk on an animal, whether you want to get out and test gear, it's such a great way because you can shoot so many. And if you blow a stalk, don't worry, you'll find more. If you miss, don't worry, you'll find more. I mean, it's such a fantastic way to get your feet wet.
Yep, and really playing the wind because, like, they're built for the traditional bow in particular, just because, yeah, exactly that. It's a great one to get your feet wet. You can get in close, and you can try a bunch of different ways to do it. Like, I love spot and stalk for it, and but there's so many options, and they're so delicious. So yeah, they are. I don't want them living around me because I know how destructive they are. But man,
Right.
I will jump to go pig hunting.
Well, man, we made a little trip last year down to Texas, me and Alec, and I don't think we ever saw hogs, but we got into some javelinas, and that was a ball.
Oh yeah. I've got a few of those. I did on western side of Texas, did some javelina hunting back in the day, and those are fun when they start chomping and they flare their hair up. They're
Yeah,
ball
it's a
fire
good
too.
time. It's a good time for sure. Now I've got to share a story, and in this story, I need to give my field note for the episode. If you follow me on social media and if you've listened to the podcast at all, you know that this was my first year really hunting with the recurve, with a full effort put forth into hunting with a recurve. I've practiced tirelessly. I have put in as much work as humanly possible to make sure I was ready. And it finally all came to a conclusion. Well, I shouldn't say conclusion because the book is just starting, but I got my first notch on my belt. Went to Missouri for early season and shot my first deer with a recurve and my first deer in velvet. And so that was just a absolute. It was the most overwhelming sense of accomplishment I've ever had in my lifetime. Because all of the hard work, all of the time spent was finally worth it. And it was like a deer I've never shot before. Shot a lot bigger deer, and I've made better shots on deer, and I've shot further deer. But that deer to me meant more than anything because of all the work that went into it. So I shot him at 13 yards out of a blind with one of my best friends, and it was just an absolute joy. But the field note I want to leave you with is this. If you're starting in archery as a whole with a compound or with a recurve or even a crossbow, or you're starting hunting, period, get your feet wet. Like, don't hold out for giants. Don't say, well, I want one of those big deer I see on Instagram. Shoot whatever comes in first. If it's a doe, if it's a fork and horn, if it's a legal fork and horn in your state, wherever you're hunting. But shoot whatever legal deer comes in first, because I might not have shot a giant, but now in my mind, it's doable. Everything that I've been working towards, I now know that I can make it happen. And I posted on Instagram today and just a video of me shooting, but I said it's amazing how much better I shoot because I'm confident in knowing that I can make the shot happen when it counts. And that's exactly what it'll do for you. And that's what hog hunting will do for you. Go hog hunting, go coyote hunting, whatever it is. Go small game hunting. It doesn't matter. But what you're going to do is you're going to build that confidence and understanding, okay, I can actually do this. Like, this is doable. It's not just a foam target at 20 yards, but I can harvest an animal with this. Because now, and I don't say this like as in I've got everything figured out, but I say this as in like, there's no stopping me now. Like, now I know it can be done. Now I know that, when it's time to make the shot, I can make the shot. And so, man, it's exciting. So if you're new to archery, go out and get your feet wet. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's a doe or a yearling. Doesn't matter if it's legal. Just shoot it. because I told my buddy that deer came in, and it came to 13 yards, and it was standing perfectly quartering away. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna take this shot. And he's like, we have bigger deer out here, because I was hunting on his property. He's like, we've got bigger deer coming into this place. I'm like, it doesn't matter, dude. This deer's right here, and it's at 13 yards, and I have a shot. And I took it, and I couldn't be happier. So, guys, don't be afraid to go out and build that confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a beautiful buck too.
That
For a first buck, that was a beautiful buck. Heck, I can tell you, I was in my late 20s before I ever passed on a deer. That's because I was my first time in Iowa, and it was such a surreal feeling of like I let a deer walk by because I'm like, I'm in Iowa, you don't get here often, and you know what they got out there, and yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But you're right,
yeah.
and I
No,
will add, bow fishing is huge for beginners because you want to get shooting in and getting results. That's an awesome way too, because that's about every state too has got some level of bow fishing to it.
really, that's a great tip, man. Because I've never heard that. I
Oh,
grew up with a bunch of dumb rednecks who like to go out and do it, but I always just kind of thought it was. Yeah, I've always just kind of thought it was more of a complete different. It has no relation to actually shooting a bow or bow hunting.
well, I mean, for getting comfortable with the bow, because a lot of it's quick action shots. So,
Yeah.
us growing up, we were in Wisconsin, so we got tons of carp on the Fox River, and that we would have the best garden in the state almost with using them as fertilizer. And I mean, I think that's where I got most of my instinctive shooting experience from as a young kid was bow fishing because we'd get such opportunities and we could go out every weekend and everybody was thankful you were shooting them. So yeah, that one was that for us was real big.
Great tip. Go out and bowfish. One guy told me, and I'm going to say his name, but if I'm wrong, don't shoot me down. I think it was Chris Perino, and we were talking about learning how to shoot a bow, and he's like, "Well, dude, never shoot the same shot twice. Like, don't just stand at 20 yards and shoot at your target." And he said the best way that I found is get a tennis ball and just throw it, and wherever it lands, shoot at it because
There
you're not going to know the distance. You're not going to know. You're not going to be shooting the same distance twice. It's going to be, you know, in tall grass or in short grass or behind a rock or over by a tree, and you're going to have to make different shots every time. And
Yep.
and my dad told me, I got good at bow hunting when I started small game hunting, which really is the same kind of concept. But so that's another great tip for learning how to just kind of instinctively draw back and shoot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's a few different throwing targets where you throw them out there and they've got like sand in the base to where they land flat, so you always have them at least faced upright. But yeah, no, that's why I love shooting outdoors with it because you just all right, just change it up, move over here 3 feet. If you shoot from the same spot day after day after day, you're going to be amazing there, or at least you better be. But then when you have to take a different shot, you fall apart because you're like, well, it's not how my mind, sees how the shot needs to happen. This is how it's supposed to be. But yeah, just always moving. One thing I like to do is, and as silly as it sounds, but like I will I'll break my stance, like with the floor. I shake my legs. So, right leg up, shake it, left leg up, shake it, just separating, from the last shot. Just so even if it's because at our shop we got one target range upstairs, so there's not a lot to play with, but at least just doing that to where okay, I'm not same spot, draw shoot, draw shoot, draw shoot. I'm just trying to break with the ground so it's a fresh shot. But yeah,
No,
outdoor
that's a
shooting is the
great tip.
best. Yeah,
Doesn't
because
sound silly at all.
it's all in the head. It's all in the head, but it's that's where all this happens. For 90% of it is right between the ears. So anything you can to keep your edge there, go for it.
No, yeah, there's an exact correlation because, and I don't remember who this study was put out by, and it doesn't quite matter, but it was on shooting free throws. And the person said, if you're in a free throw shooting contest and you're shooting best of 10, um, and you're going against somebody, toss them the ball just a little to the right where they have to step off from where they were, and they're basically starting all over again. You know,
Okay.
they're having to replant their feet, find everything. I mean, it's so it's. I don't know the reasoning behind it or the brain. I don't know all that good stuff, but I do know that it's that makes perfect sense in my mind because of that study on shooting a basketball, which is fully instinctive as well. So
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's well, and I guess part of it is I do look down. I break my contact with the target, and it's like, all right, fresh. I definitely do it. I force myself to do it if I start shooting, some bad rounds and that, and you're like, all right, stop, reset. So deep breath, shake your feet, look down, look back up at the target, and start new.
now I've got two questions for you before I let you go. But before I ask those, I do got to give a quick thank you to our friends over at the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. Um, John Mesh was a firefighter in the Kansas City area, died in the line of duty. He had a strong desire to get kids involved in the outdoors. So now his brother Jim Mesh has started a memorial fund in his name, and they hold events across the country for children to come and get involved with. They just had one, and it was a roaring success. So go check them out at Hunt363 on social media. That was his firefighter number. Go check them out, and I would really strongly consider you supporting them because they make a difference in getting kids involved in archery, and not in just in archery, but in skeet shooting and rifle hunting and every aspect of the outdoors. So go check out the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. Jonathan, I'm big on field notes because Fred Bear is big on field notes. So I ask every single one of my guests, what's one field note you've taken over the years? Just a quick tip or trick that I can put in my back pocket and make myself a better hunter with.
Oh, well, it's probably not a unique one, but don't be afraid to make changes, especially in the woods. Um, I think a lot of us, because I grew up stand hunter, and it's like, nope, nope, this is my stand. This is where you got to be. Uh, if the wind changes, if something changes, don't don't muscle through it. Flow with the hunt. I've climbed down from trees and sat on the ground on the opposite side where I never would have thought I would, just because it's like, okay, the wind shifted on me, or something swirling, or something changed to where, yeah, I remember one was a branch just fell and there was no way to make any changes. It's like, well, I'm either going to just spend a day enjoying being outdoors, or I can make a move and I can keep hunting. And that's what I did. And I won't say that night, oh yeah, I killed the biggest buck of my life because of it, but I was able to change and still keep hunting. And that's one for me, a note for the woods of, I think everybody needs to do more. Like, be ready to adapt, I guess, is a short to it. But
Yeah. No, a good friend of mine one time told me, don't hunt the best tree stand. And I'm like, what? And he's like, we all have that best tree stand. That's where our shooter's coming in at. That's where it's going to happen. We know that. And oftentimes, if we have the opportunity to hunt, we just go to that tree stand. But don't always just go to that tree stand. Find what tree stand is the best for that day, for the wind and for the thermals or whatever it might be. And don't always just run to that number one spot because that number one spot might not be the best for that day.
no, right. And then I mean, once you burn a spot out, especially when you start getting to more mature deer in that, the, they don't have borders or property lines they respect. They'll go, I'm going to go that way, and you might never see them again. So yeah, absolutely. Make sure you're hunting the best spot for the day, because yeah, very much. We're moving. It's only 6 acres, so I mean, not a lot of land at all for it. But it's like I like to have at least two stands. You go, okay, the wind's going to come this way, like it almost always will. This is a spot, but if it's not going to happen, this isn't my favorite, but this will get me in a better spot for not busting everything out of there. Because especially for when you're hunting small property like that, you're not going to get a lot of chances with deer. If they
Yeah.
get skittish of you, they're just going to go 1 acre over, and then they're on the neighbor's property. And it's like, okay,
Yeah. No, I always keep I don't know what brand it is. It's just a little dinky thing. I bought it at like a farm store here, but it's just a little pop-up wall. And I keep that in my pack no matter what, even if I'm hunting in a tree stand. That way, if I do need to get down and go set up in a drainage or something, or in a behind a tree, at least I have something to pop up in front of me. And so I always carry that with me, just in case. And so it's something I just started doing last year because I wanted to be more adaptive and wanted to be more mobile and more, not tied down to the one spot. So
Right.
I also got to ask you this, and you already shared about pig meat. Um, I've got some incredible friends over at Rebel 6 Rubs. They make 9 different rubs for all different wild game. And I'm a big fan of eating wild game and consuming wild game. And so I like to ask my guests, maybe you want to share your favorite wild game you've ever had, or maybe you want to share a wild game dish that you found to be uh, good to make, whatever. Or maybe one particular meal. Some guys just say, well, I can't tell you my favorite wild game, but I can tell you about a meal I had in Alaska once,
Right.
um,
Right.
so what's your favorite wild game?
Oof, what definitely pig. I mean, because I don't, chase the big 400 pounders running around. Though I'd happily do it, but me, when I see those little, 50 to 75 pounders, I just get salivating because I'm like, yep, you're going in the freezer. Um, but from that, I think one thing that I've learned only, over probably the past 6 years or so is that fancy way to cook a wild game, the sous vide, um, which basically is just a water heater. So instead of putting the meat on the grill right away, you cook it in a temperature controlled water for longer. And I find that to be amazing, no matter what wild game you're using, because it keeps the flavor in it. And it sounds silly because I'm a little redneck in the sense like, no, there's you can throw it on the grill and cook it and eat it. But man, when you can keep that flavor in the meat like that, especially wild game, which is pretty lean in itself, that takes it to a whole new level.
Man, you're speaking my language, because I love sous videing. I don't know if you can use that I don't know if you can say sous videing, but I love using that cooking method.
Yep,
um,
yep.
no, you need to go check out Rebel 6 Rubs. They have a wild boar rub, and let me just tell you something. It's really good on bacon as well. Just regular store-bought bacon sprinkled over it while it's frying your bacon, and I love it. Guys, go check out Rebel 6 Rubs. You can use Bear 101 at at checkout for a discount, and get yourself some amazing rubs for all different sorts of wild game. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. Tell us where we can find Three Rivers, and do you have anything going on this fall that the listeners need to know about?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can find us anywhere and everywhere at Three Rivers Archery. That's the number three Rivers Archery. On our web is always updating in that, riversarchery.com, Instagram, Facebook, all the regulars. For what we're doing this year, well, we're doing a great job keeping stuff on the shelf. And that's, as I think we can see in every industry, is a talent all on its own anymore. We're offering free shipping on orders of $99 plus when you order online. Use our code SHIP99. Um, Sign up for our emails, which you can do from our website, or give us a call, and we'll get you signed up to get the latest deals that we pop up. And always offering special buys on arrows, because who doesn't need more arrows? But yeah, swing by the website, sign up, or give us a call, and we'll send you a catalog.
You guys also have some awesome Fredbear branded products that are exclusive to Three Rivers.
Yep. We've offered quite a bit this year. Belt buckles, some tin signs that are real affordable and look great on any wall. The belt buckles, I'm actually really excited about. Those are pretty snazzy.
I personally am a fan of that hat you guys have.
Oh, the Stormy Cromer? Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and
That's it.
that's the all wool one. We were like, we need an all wool one, but we got to have the bear logo on it. It just it's too right to
Yeah.
have it that way.
So, guys, go check out Three Rivers for anything you need traditional wise. They carry a lot of my favorite brands, including, of course, Bear Archery, Easton, Selway, just a lot of brands that I have come to love. So go check out Three Rivers. And they also have some incredible bear archery products that you can't get anywhere else. ThreeRiversArchery.com. They are the powerhouse one-stop shop for all things traditional. Guys, thank you for listening. Good luck this fall. And as always, if you get a harvest and if you get a deer on the ground, make sure and shoot me over some pictures. You can send them to the hunting101podcast@gmail.com. I love to share and celebrate any of your success with you. Good luck this fall. You guys have a great week.